Hello, everybody. I would like to introduce my research, juxtaposing or creating dialogue between different images that take part in my research that is related to political agency of indigenous women, textile, labor, contemporary art, but also management of heritage and reparations. So first image is this one that was took in the trial of Sepulsarco in 2016. It was the first time that the case of sexual slavery during the war is considered as a category of war crime in the history of law. That's why it was so important and explain, the situation that happened to these women that appear in the image in the 80s during the civil war in Guatemala that happened from the 60s to 96. That was the end of the conflict. We can see in this picture that they decide to hide their identity using these clothes that is some traditional clothes called perraje that is used for different purposes, as for example wearing babies or wrapping things, wrapping food, or wearing food as well. And in this jest, I think they were a part of protecting themselves, their identity, what give a sense of their own feeling of the situation. I think it's interesting how the idea of fear is in constant feedback with the idea of shame or the sense of shame when we are speaking about traumatic experiences. The second image is this picture of Andrea Monroe that is an artwork she did in that year, listening the recordings of the trial, listening the testimonies of these women, in which she juxtaposed the picturesque and idealized image of women of folklorism with some images of the trial that she did by hand. By doing so, Monroe is claiming about an image of indigenous women that is not based on the past or in a temporal sense, but is based on their political reality and contemporary situation. Third element would be for me this museum or any museum, but especially this one that is in the city of Guatemala, that is el Museo del Traje, the Museum of the Dress of the indigenous people. Which one is the role in these processes of resignification of the experiences of the bodies of the indigenous population, and which one is the role in this struggle for the rights and for overcoming the coloniality of society, of Western society. It's interesting because the museum has a room specialized in these clothes that these women are wearing, the perraje, and they are speaking about what the purpose, what it's used for, or they have some pieces from 19th century or beginning of 20th century. Is working especially in the preservation of techniques and also of pieces of clothes, of historical clothes of different regions. So it's not involved in questions of, again, mourning or resignification of identities or overcoming the devaluation of the everyday life of these women in the society. And the dress is a battlefield, so that's why it's so important, because it's a point of tension where different forces are coexisting. As for example, there is a kind of pressure of demand of the society for these women to not wear the dress because it's like a symptom of oppression, of chauvinism, or also of backward or regionalism, for example. But at the same time, touristic agencies are demanding these women to wear the dress because of the tourists and not mixing them with other clothes for not confusing them, or also are asking the labor of doing textile to be cheap for the tourists, for them to have a good experience. And also as well, this is very important. The women that use the dress, the regional dress, is also showing a self-determination of a resistance of not being devaluated by the Western society within Guatemala. And as preserving the culture with the dress could be easily turned into a passive content So one of the Mayan feminist role is to request for a change in this passive role, and to ask also for an active acknowledgement of this resistance act. So women as political agents as well in this political struggle, when they are, especially when they are wearing the dress, defending the culture, and so on. And I would say the fourth element would be the last in the last years, with the revalorization of indigenous culture. Some industries, of fashion industries, has looked at this production of knowledge that is an ancestral knowledge that has been passed through generation of creating textiles. And in 2017, the national movement of weavers, that are women, they got, I mean, they asked to the parliament to change a law, and they got success in this, asking them to acknowledge that the textile were not an individual property, as some companies, some fashion companies wanted to do. This knowledge, this intellectual property, was collective. So it was the first time that is another idea of intellectual property is not Western and modern, but has another sense and another understanding that has to do with the heritage of the whole community. And in the same way, in the last years, also women are asking, making pressure for demanding being the administrators of their own patrimony. So not being like passive objects to be regulated by the government and the state, but being active agents in this manage of the heritage. For example, some pieces that are sewn in museums are sacred, so they should be not visible, or different images. For example, tourist agencies are promoting, they are reproducing colonial preconceptions and racism. So the idea is of the research is also to question the idea of how repatriation of objects to museums, to national museums in Latin America, for example, is really has to do with reparation, because the national and the colonial is very often linked, and they are reproducing the same strategies and the same neutralizations of the political agency of indigenous community in this case. So thank you very much, and I hope we can debate and we can speak more during the debate. Thanks.